Well, everyone, grateful to have you here. Welcome to this month's Community Lyceum presentation, made possible by First Parish in Bedford Unitarian Universalist. The Lyceum program is a series of monthly community forums covering a wide range of topics, and all Lyceum talks are free and open to the public. Today's presentation focuses on the climate crisis, its worldwide ramifications, and what people can do to help address this challenge. Please welcome our speaker, Corinne Doud. Corinne is chair of First Parish in Bedford's Environmental Justice Committee and co-coordinator of Mothers Out Front Bedford chapter. Corinne? Why don't you take it from here?
Well, thank you, Ellen, and welcome everyone. About a month ago, I was trained along with many others to serve as a volunteer climate reality leader by former Vice President Al Gore regarding the science, the impacts, and solutions on the climate crisis. So that's what brings me here today. I'll be showing the Truth in 10 slideshow developed by Al Gore. And this is to help spread a simple message that the climate crisis is urgent and the solutions are at hand. So now I will share my material. Today's a really special day because we're part of a global effort aiming to hit 3,000 presentations around the world, an event called 24 Hours of Reality, Countdown to the Future. For 24 straight hours, former Vice President Gore and climate reality leader activists worldwide are leading presentations and discussions about the climate crisis and its solutions. Today's Lyceum is part of that event. The Climate Reality Project, founded by Al Gore, is an organization to empower people to act on climate and create a healthy future for our planet by making urgent action a necessity. To thank everyone for participating today, Climate Reality and One Tree Planted will plant one tree for each person here. And I will tell you how that will happen at the end of my talk. So let's get started. This is a picture of my family taken last year. We are standing on the dock in New Hampshire at Ayers Lake, where we love to spend time during the summers. That's my husband, Bob, on the left, and we are with our two kids, James and Cassie. We all do so much for our children, but are we doing enough for our children? A livable climate for all is so important. As many of you know, in addition to having a passion for the environment, I love tennis. Last month, I was playing on these courts in Bedford, and the hazy sky I was playing under was from the West Coast wildfires 3,000 miles away. California is battling the worst fire season in recorded history. This past Monday, October 5th, California reached another alarming milestone. USA Today reported that a single fire burned 1 million acres. The California August complex fire is larger than the combined total of all of the state's wildfires from 1932 to 1999. This comes a day after fire officials said this year's wildfires burned more than 4 million acres, more than double the previous record. Governor Newsom said, if that's not proof point testament to climate change, then I don't know what is. We'll now see a brief video greeting from Al Gore. Here he is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Al Gore, and I want to thank you for joining us today for 24 Hours of Reality, Countdown to the Future. As all of you know, we're living through truly extraordinary times, and if you're like most people, you look at these challenges that we're facing now, the climate crisis getting worse, COVID-19 pandemic, structural and institutional racism, the challenges to the operations of democracy, and you ask yourself, what can we do? how do we overcome these truly existential threats that are connected, and how do we build together the sustainable future and the just and fair future that we want and deserve? Well, the presentation you're about to hear and the discussion you're about to join is about these questions. Your host is an incredible climate reality leader that I personally have worked with, and through their presentation, you'll learn the science behind the climate crisis and why it is having such a devastating impact on the ecological balance of our planet. You'll also learn how the climate crisis is connected to the COVID-19 pandemic and is connected to the broader injustices and inequities, not only in the US where I'm located, but in places all around the planet. Just as important, you'll learn that we have the solutions, and you'll learn how we can work together to solve these crises, starting with a green recovery and with a just transition to clean energy and the technologies that can make our world better in every way. You'll learn what you personally can do to make a difference and to help us create the future that we want and that humanity deserves. So before I hand you back to your host, I want to say one other thing. Thank you for being a part of this global conversation. The truth of our circumstances is very clear. We have to solve the climate crisis, and we have the solutions we need today. I know that we can solve the climate crisis. We have the political will. You know it's a renewable resource, but it's really because of people like you who are ready to commit the time and energy and attention and stand up and fight for a better world. Because of you, I know that we will succeed. Thank you.
Before starting the Truth in 10 slideshow, let's first look at climate change with respect to COVID-19 and climate justice. Air pollution kills 9 million people a year. The same burning of fossil fuels that creates the global warming pollution also creates the particulates that cause more lung diseases and heart diseases. Pollution from extracting and burning fossil fuels isn't only driving the climate crisis, it's also creating a public and environmental health crisis worldwide. The climate also makes people more vulnerable to COVID-19 pandemic all over the world. More air pollution, a higher death rate from COVID-19. We see this pattern show up worst among minority populations and poor populations. Black Americans are dying at a rate more than twice as high as white Americans from COVID-19. This is for many reasons, but the climate crisis is one of the principal ones. COVID brought attention to the public health connection, but leaders from urban areas, primarily from communities of color, have been demanding changes for generations. Racism and classism fuel the acceptance of sacrificial people and places. This is not new. If you look at the 10 counties most affected by flooding in the United States, 81% of the population is minority on average. We know that communities of color and low-income neighborhoods are disproportionately at risk from the climate crisis. Notably, minority communities are more vulnerable to disasters and extreme heat. It's a national security issue. It creates problems for food and water and health. Many experts see climate change as a threat multiplier and a driver of conflict. We're also seeing the same pattern all over the world. As Pope Francis reminded the world powerfully, the poor are the ones most affected and communities of color are most affected. There can be no long-term solution to human rights concerns without dealing with environmental justice issues. Climate change is interconnected with social justice and environmental issues and our very survival on Earth. We now begin the Truth in 10 slideshow. This is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last of the Apollo missions and changed the way humanity thought about our beautiful home planet that we all share. It reminds us that we are all connected and our actions have an impact on our planet. So there are only 3 questions we must ask about the climate crisis. Must we change? Can we change? Will we change? First, must we change? The scientific community all around the world has been telling us for a long time that yes, we must change. Now, Mother Nature is telling us. The sky is not a vast and limitless expanse the way it appears to us when we stand on the ground and look up. In reality, there is just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. We are putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the atmosphere every single day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide, is building up and it's trapping heat. Here is the basic science of global warming. This has been understood by scientists since the 1800s. Energy from the sun comes to Earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the Earth and warms it. Some of that energy is re-radiated from the Earth in the form of heat. Some of that outgoing heat is trapped by the atmosphere, which is a good thing. It has kept our planet at a stable temperature. Now, however, we have been thickening the atmosphere by filling it with heat-trapping pollution. More heat energy is trapped, and it's warming our planet at an unprecedented rate. Where does greenhouse gas pollution come from? It comes from lots of different sources, from landfills, transportation, burning forest and cropland, agriculture, and the permafrost is thawing, and that's playing a role now. But the biggest source, by far, causing the rise in global temperatures we are seeing today is our reliance on fossil fuels. And since World War II, that's been going up dramatically. As a result of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere, global temperatures are going up very fast. 19 of the 20 hottest years have been since 2001. The 5 hottest have been the last 5 years. And here they are in order. So 2016 was the hottest, then 2019, etc. Heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world and many parts of this country. Heat affects not only people, but animals, crops, and our weather. On a global basis, more than 90% of all extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is going into the oceans. This means ocean-based storms like hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones, stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat content has occurred in less than 20 years. Hurricane Florence produced record-breaking rainfall across portions of North and South Carolina when it made landfall on the morning of September 14th, 2018 in North Carolina. The extra heat also disrupts the water cycle. The amount of water vapor that evaporates off the oceans increases as the oceans warm. That water vapor is carried over the land and often falls in much bigger precipitation events. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls in these larger storms and downpours, we see floods and mudslides. Extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s in many regions around the world, including much of the US. This photo is of a supercell storm with enormous downpours in Montana. Extreme precipitation events lead to record flooding, which has been occurring all over the world. Sadly, the impact of the storms disproportionately impacts people of color and of disadvantaged communities. So the negative impacts of climate is unevenly distributed to people who are least able to handle them. Sometimes people wonder how global warming can be blamed for causing more precipitation and flooding, and at the same time, more drought. The same heat trapped by rising levels of greenhouse gases that causes these rainstorms and floods also causes droughts by sucking the moisture out of the topsoil, so the droughts take place more quickly. The groundwater is used up faster. Changing precipitation patterns can lead to drought and water shortages, Southern Brazil, for example, suffered a devastating drought in 2015 and 2016. When we have high temperatures and drought, we also see more wildfires. Today, the fire season in the Western US is more than 100 days longer than in the 1970s. In 2016, this fire in the heart of the Canadian tar sands region destroyed large parts of the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta, and forced the evacuation of over 100,000 people. The number of climate-related extreme weather events has been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with over $160 billion in losses in 2018 and $140 billion in 2019. The heat is also melting ice in Greenland. This glacier turned into water. All this extra melting is raising sea levels worldwide. This flooding occurred in Miami Beach, Florida on a sunny day with no rain. High tides now regularly flood the streets of Miami Beach, as well as several other coastal cities around the world. This situation will only get worse as sea levels continue to rise. Miami is the #1 city at risk in terms of assets at risk, along with Guangzhou, China, New York, Newark, and others. Looking at cities at risk by population, we see that many huge cities in developing countries are very much in danger. If parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where will the people who live there go? The Department of Defense in the United States has long warned about refugee crisis connected to the climate crisis, as well as pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. Forced migration is already in motion. Syria is a painful example. Inadequate housing and toxic environments, food insecurity, people displaced and forced to migrate, economic insecurity, all of this is connected. Heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans. Exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many staple crops, such as rice, wheat, and soy. Infectious diseases, heat stress, air pollution, and waterborne diseases are all influenced by a changing climate, and not in our favor. Warmer temperatures have an impact on the spread of tropical diseases. Modern transportation and air travel plays a part, but the potential range for many diseases expands as regions farther and farther poleward get warmer. This means there are more and more places where a disease like Zika can take root. The main mosquito that spreads Zika and dengue and yellow fever is now covering a wider range in a warmer, wetter world. In warmer temperatures, the virus incubates faster and mosquitoes breed more and are able to transmit the disease longer. The health impacts of the climate crisis are often overlooked, but will affect millions of people. West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis, EEE, are viruses that occur in Massachusetts, and this year we've had human cases of both. Last year, the Commonwealth experienced its most active EEE season since 1956, with 12 human cases and 6 deaths. Not just people are affected, we're in danger of losing half of all the living species on Earth in this century. All of these threats, including many we haven't even covered here, and the fact that the World Economic Forum says climate change is the #1 threat to the global economy, help to answer the question, must we change? So, do we have to change? Yes, we do. But what about the second question? Can we change? The answer to this question is very exciting and positive. We've got the solutions available to us now. Look, for example, at renewable energy. Wind energy was predicted to provide 30 gigawatts of electricity worldwide by 2010. As of 2019, we had exceeded that prediction by 22 times over. The growth in wind energy being built around the world is an exponential curve. Wind energy could supply 40 times more electricity than the entire world currently uses. Solar energy is an even more dramatic story. 18 years ago, the best projection was that we would install 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity per year by 2010. By 2010, we exceeded that goal by 17 times. In 2019, we exceeded the goal by 121 times. We even more dramatically than with wind, we see an exponential curve in the amount of solar energy installed around the world. Just as we've seen with other technologies, such as computer chips and cell phones, solar costs have fallen dramatically. In some regions, solar energy is less than half the cost of electricity from burning coal. In many countries where there's no universal electricity grid, we're seeing consumers and businesses leapfrog old technologies and install solar panels in places that have long been denied access to electricity. Chile is a true solar success story, thanks to its policy decisions. The country's solar market took off slowly, but look at what's happening now. At the end of 2018, Chile had 2.3 gigawatts of installed solar and has an additional 16.67 gigawatts of solar projects approved or under construction. There are many regions in the world where this type of growth and development are possible. Every hour the Earth gets as much energy from the sun as we need to run the entire globe economy for a year. If we can increase the fraction of this energy, then we harvest and use, we can make a lot of progress towards solving the climate crisis and helping local economies at the same time. Battery storage is an essential part of the green energy revolution. Batteries allow us to store excess solar or wind energy and use it during those times when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. Batteries are also critical for the electric vehicle market. Storage technologies are getting more and more efficient and cheaper, and the market is growing quickly. Within the next 8 years, highly efficient LED lights are predicted to virtually take over the market. Energy efficient technology like LEDs save people money and help reduce emissions by cutting down on the amount of electricity we use. Here in Bedford, my family had a Mass Save home energy assessment where they swapped out our bulbs for LEDs, and they even did the little bulbs in our candelabra. Bedford Mothers Out Front has partnered with Revise Energy, a Mass Save partner, to promote no-cost home energy assessment for homeowners to reduce consumption of fossil fuels for electricity, heating, and cooling. For each assessment, they'll donate $35 towards solar panels for Bedford schools when you mention Mothers Out Front. In transportation, we're seeing the beginnings of a massive shift to electric vehicles. So, can we change? Yes, we have the technology we need and it's getting better all the time. What we really need are policies to change more quickly. What about the final question? Will we change? Here too, there's exciting news. In December of 2015 at the Paris climate negotiations, every nation in the world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as early in the second half of this century as possible. Climate action isn't just about what countries do. We all have to take the lead on climate. We're seeing corporations, states and provinces, and cities commit to reducing emissions. We need leaders that reject the influence of fossil fuel money and plan for a just, climate-safe, renewable energy future for everyone, not just the few. And yes, the current president of the US wants to withdraw from the agreement, but by law, that can't happen until the day after this November's election. Were there to be a new president, that new president could give 30 days notice, and the US is right back in the agreement. We're seeing marches and demonstrations and demands at the ballot box for the changes necessary to solve this crisis. People are rallying for justice and equity in response to a system created by the collective dependence on fossil fuels, rooted in the acceptance of sacrificial people and places that has been preventing the global response to the climate crisis that we need. And the rising young generation, the Greta generation, they're leading the way and demanding a better future. A number of youth here in Bedford joined the climate marches in Boston and surrounding towns. Please join those who are speaking out, voting, and making everyday choices to fight the climate crisis. Use your voice, your vote, and your choices in the marketplace and in your life. Speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world depends on it. To learn more about the climate crisis and what you can do to help it, please consider seeing the film, An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power, or reading the book with the same name. That ends the Truth in 10 presentation, and I have a few more slides on taking action. Here are actions I'm doing at home. Eating more plants. Instead of eating animals who eat plants, reduces the enormous environmental burden that goes along with animal agriculture. Curbside recycling. The blue town recycling bin we use to recycle paper and cardboard, glass and plastic bottles, and aluminum cans. Instead of throwing those away in the trash and filling our landfills, they can be turned into new products. Reduce, reuse, recycle. I was excited to learn earlier this year that Bedford has textile bins in town, and the collected textiles earn rebates for the Bedford High School to support groups focused on environmental causes. Curbside composting. The green bin on my curb is from Black Earth, and it's great for composting food scraps, bones, and oily pizza boxes. In Bedford, when 200 households sign up for Black Earth composting, and we're getting closer to that number, Black Earth will reduce the price 30%. Composting is important because when food goes to the landfill, the organic material decomposes in low oxygen anaerobic conditions, releasing methane, which is a much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Composting can therefore significantly reduce methane emissions. The town of Bedford also sells compost machines to do your own composting of food scraps. We put solar panels on our home in 2014, and our panels have generated over 36 megawatts of clean energy. We also opted up to 100% green energy, as did First Parish in Bedford, who's hosting this Lyceum, through Bedford's Community Choice Aggregation Program that provides competitive choice, longer-term price stability, and more renewable energy options. We also drive an electric vehicle. The picture on the right is an electrical vehicle charging station at our town hall. Bedford has 7 charging stations around town powered by 100% renewable electricity that are free to use. The use of those 7 charging stations has eliminated 28,160 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions, which is the equivalent of planting 723 trees and letting them grow for 10 years. So do what you can, though there's always more to do. In addition to taking personal action, we must amplify our power by working together. Author and activist Bill McKibben has a great response when asked, "What can I do about the climate?" He says, "Become less of an individual. Come together and push for solutions." So instead of being just one, join a climate group. Some of mine are the Climate Reality Project. I've noted myself and Joshua May as contacts. Mothers Out Front. Madeline Altman and I co-coordinate the Bedford chapter, and Renu Bostwick is our chapter growth and engagement leader. Feel free to contact any of us. I've also included UU Mass Action, First Parish in Bedford, and the Sierra Club. And of course, there are so many others to get involved in. If you're already involved in an environmental group, invite others to join you. And finally, one of the most important actions we can take, vote. Not just you, but encourage 3 friends to vote. Help drive broad voter participation by helping to get out the vote, like phone banking. Voting is important not just at the federal and state level, but also at the local level. Last year in Bedford, resident Brown Pulliam initiated a citizen's petition to act on climate, a statement of town's concern at lack of federal and state action against global warming, to send a collective message to our local, state, and national leaders. And that article passed at town meeting. At a 2017 town meeting, Bedford voted to establish a goal of achieving an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and to develop a plan to achieve that goal. Well, we now have that net zero plan, but will our town move towards funding for a sustainability director to implement greenhouse gas initiative and sustainability goals? The power of voting does make a difference. Remember how I told you we are planting a tree for everyone who participates today? Climate Reality is working with One Tree Planted, a nonprofit organization working on reforestation projects to rebuild wildlife habitat, restore land, create jobs, sequester carbon, and more. They'll plant one tree for each person who is here today. So go to 24hoursofreality.org and scroll down to fill out the form to support healthy forests. We'll put the link in the chat. As we transition to the Q&A, I would like to first introduce a fellow climate reality leader, Joshua May, who will be participating in our discussion. Josh is founder of the Climate Reality Business Working Group and co-founder of the Boston Metro chapter of Climate Reality. He is also the CEO of Reventure, an energy and sustainability consulting group. Josh, would you like to say a few words on why climate work is important to you? If someone could unmute Josh.
Absolutely. Thank you, Corinne. A great presentation, and welcome everybody. It's exciting to see, first of all, the action that your church has taken to this point, and the fact that so many of you are taking time out on a Sunday to learn a little bit more about this issue. My name is Joshua May, as Corinne said. I've been with Climate Reality since 2015. My passion for the environment came out of my service in the U.S. Army in the 90s and early 2000s, looking at a lot of the deployments and how we came into an area versus how we left an area. And once leaving the military, I actually had the chance to see Mr. Gore speak, and then about a year after that was the release of an Inconvenient Truth, which changed the conversation on this topic. So I've been with the organization, like I said, since 2015, mentored at 8 trainings, formed there a business working group across the country, and then helped to launch the Climate Reality chapter in the Boston metro area. So again, really excited that all of you could join us, and thank you for taking time out on a Sunday. And Corinne and I don't want to talk for too long here. We'd like to take your questions for the next 25 minutes or so, if there's anything that you would like to talk about.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wondered, Corinne, I've got a couple of pet peeves that I don't understand. I do understand in a way, because it's the big oil companies and utilities and so on that block it. But do you know of any legislation, either at the state or federal level, that would require all new construction to be energy efficient and have solar installation if possible? I mean, I travel around the country before the pandemic, and Colorado's a great example. They've got gazillion days of sunshine out there, and not a lot of trees blocking the roofs of houses, and yet the percentage of houses, and especially in new construction with solar, is minuscule. I mean, what are we doing? We ought to be able to do stuff, through legislation.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing we should work towards. I believe in Brookline, they this is more of a town by town, not by state, but they have passed such a thing that like a gas ban against new installations and such. And more towns are now trying to follow suit. But currently our legislative session was supposed to close earlier this summer, but it's going to be extended through the end of the year because we have both a Senate bill and a bill in the representatives that was a bill in each. So right now we have a group from both of those trying to work out to come up with a bill that can be put forth to the governor. And the thing is, we don't know a lot of the specifics about it, but I know Maine does have some type of thing that pertains to all of Maine, but Josh or Renew, would any of you like to further comment?
I'd love to jump in, Corinne, and George, that's such a great question. Right now, a lot of what's happening is on the municipal level. There are quite a few bills that have gone through in Boston that Mayor Walsh has put forward as far as new building. But that's really why, as Corinne was saying in her presentation, that not just focusing on the national election is really important at this point. We really need to elect local and state leaders that see this as an important issue. We have a couple of bills or movements in Massachusetts that are so close to the threshold of support that we need in both houses. And in particular, I can say that we're very, very close on a price on carbon. And what that would do, along with removing the monies and support that are given to fossil fuels to artificially, uplift them and keep their pricing low, is it would basically put the onus on the cleanup that needs to happen and the works that need to happen on the companies that caused the problem in the first place, while also making renewable energy products that much more competitive. So that's really, at this point, until we see what things look like after November 3rd, we really need to just buckle down and focus on this election and look at the candidates from the local level all the way up to the presidency, and really push for folks that are looking to make a difference immediately in some pretty forward-looking legislation.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to pipe in about the municipal gas bans. I know some municipalities have tried to have actually passed laws about new construction not being allowed to use gas infrastructure. And the Attorney General has, I believe, struck that down because municipalities are not allowed currently to go above and beyond the state laws. So until the state comes up with building codes that are net zero, towns will not be allowed to do it. And so it's even more important for all of us to talk to our legislators and say we need, better building codes. We need, some of these things that are not even that exciting for most people to talk about, but it'll be hard for us to do individual and town by town things unless we get state by state things. But at the same time, more and more towns, if they pass these kinds of things, it'll show the state legislature that they should take action at a state level.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be brief, but I happen to be involved in some advocacy at the state level around building codes. So in Massachusetts, the state sets the building code, and there are two building codes, but so one is called the stretch code, and most municipalities have now opted into what's called that stretch code. And the state building code covers building requirements and energy requirements, including insulation levels and such. And nothing, as Renew said, nothing on the city level or city and town level can override what the state mandates within its, or the state sort of claims jurisdiction over with the building code. So there are a lot of municipalities that are trying to pass regulations to make homes, new homes, and buildings more energy efficient or gas free or have panels on the roofs. And they've kind of been blocked by the fact that the state has a building code that overrides it. So there have been a lot of efforts to get the state to update its stretch code so that municipalities can actually set those more stringent requirements. But to date, the executive branch has been hard to move on the issue, despite the fact that there's a legal requirement for them to move set by the Global Warming Solutions Act back in 2008. So the long story is that the state is kind of moving slower than a lot of cities and towns want to move, and that's where we're trying to put a lot of pressure.
I had one more comment about it, and as you know, all you First Parish folks know, when we tried to put that article in Bedford about solar panels in the historic district, that also got struck down by the state attorney general because it did not follow the state guidelines. I believe something along those lines anyway.
I just wanted to ask if there are any thoughts about the adverse impact of certain kinds of steps, such as use of solar panels. I know, for example, for iPhones, there's a need for rare metals, and that has ramifications downstream in the source countries of these rare metals. Has there been any consideration of some of the downsides that we have to address if we implement more solar panels, more wind turbines, and that kind of thing? I'm not playing devil's advocate. I just wanted to ask about what kind of arguments other people have had to impede some of the good steps we'd like to take.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think whenever you're moving into new technology, there are going to be two sides. Just a personal story. Earlier in the slides, I showed a picture of our solar panels, which are on the roof on our backyard. And what we discovered after getting them is in the winter, the snow and ice will melt on them and come flying down onto the porch. And if I'm outside standing under them, it could be dangerous. Now in the winter, we don't use the back side of our house. We just use the front side. So it's not a problem. But, I think since then, because that was back in 2014, I remember when our church was getting solar panels, I said, are you making sure to account for that? But technology has changed, or now they're trying to do things. But Larry or Josh, do you want to further comment on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit, Corinne, and again, Ellen, we love folks that bring up the challenges because we have to think about these as we go along, right? And a perfect example, I'd say sort of the best thing to do is kind of take a look at a side-by-side comparison. There's always going to be some bit of an issue with any technology that you're working with, but when you're looking at the actual greenhouse gas emissions and what the positive net is versus the negative, and you do a side by side, I think you can see a stark difference there. And then the second thing that I would say to that is just to use wind as an example. We've seen, of course, migratory birds really hurt by the large wind turbines out, especially in the Midwest. And now you're seeing a movement towards vertical wind, which has a smaller footprint and does not have nearly the danger to bird populations as the larger wind turbines. And even with the larger turbines, they've discovered that simply by painting one or two of the blades black, that significantly decreases the injuries to the bird population. So I think it's a combination of we really need to measure what the positive effects versus the negative effects are to make the greatest difference as quickly as possible on the one part. And on the second part, to continually be innovating and increasing efficiency and reducing any negative impact that newer technologies are having.
And I guess I'd weigh in and just say there's even a self-correcting element here as rare earth metals that are used in these solar panels become more rare and mined and expensive. Guess what industry does? They're like, okay, we got to reduce our cost of goods to produce. And so there's innovations continuing on solar panels to use other materials that aren't as expensive and therefore more readily available. So, you know, we don't want to whitewash this as technology will solve all the world's problems, but the cost of solar has come down massively, as Corinne showed in some of the slides. And, you know, our scientists are innovating. We just need the government to help motivate industry along even more.
Thank you both.
Rainu, you had her hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, disposal, you know, dealing with the disposal and of, you know, toxics is being worked on even as we, you know, even as we're moving into using more of those solar panels. And so waiting until it's a fully clean solution will mean we have catastrophic climate change and our societies will not be able to deal with it. So the existential threat of not moving to it far outweighs the contamination of disposal of the toxics.
It's kind of like when I was talking about actions, it's not just one thing we need to do. We need to approach this from many different aspects, from you know, individual to local to state to federal to everything. And we need to not just address one thing, but you know, this reduce, reuse, recycle is very important. I also want to mention, Peggy, you were just talking about like home energy assessments and such. And I know I mentioned during my talk, Revise Energy and the Mass Save program for doing energy assessments. If you can do an energy assessment like once every 2 years. But if you need insulation, right now they're having a special where I believe it's 100% covered insulation. So it's a great time to get an energy assessment if you need insulation.
Yeah, just to interject on that, it's free re-insulation. You just have to pay for the removal.
Thank you, Ellen. While we're waiting to unmute them, I just want to mention the book Drawdown. Not too long ago, we had done a event in Bedford about drawdown. And this is where they prioritize all the things that you can do, but of those, you know, what has the most impact? So yes, there's many things we can do, but we really need to try and figure out which ones do we want to place most of our emphasis, like fossil fuels, reducing those. That's so critical. Were you able to unmute?
Yes, they're unmuted. Go ahead, Richard.
Hi. This is, I think, a question for Larry, but I do want to first say that Rich and I live in Holliston, and we belong to a 350 climate group up at Charles, and we did a campaign 2 years ago to have our town, which is a pretty conservative town, hire a sustainability coordinator, and it took 2 years, but they finally passed it on the town meeting, and one is hired part-time now. So I'm working closely with him, and I'm very aware of the city of Watertown has passed last November a new ordinance about requiring solar panels on all new commercial buildings. Now, I would like to know how I could go about helping my sustainability coordinator put something like this in Holliston. Is this still being able to do, or is this being blocked also by the Attorney General because it's not, now it's a little bit different than last year? Thank you.
Hey, so thanks for that question. Watertown did indeed pass a bylaw with that requirement. I believe there's a size requirement, so it's commercial buildings over 150,000 square feet, something like that.
10,000.
10, oh, yeah, not 150, yeah, 10,000, right. And so I live in Somerville, actually, and it's actually a mystery to us how they got that through the Attorney General, but it has, I believe it has been upheld by the Attorney General. So we're actually trying to get a copy of that and looking at that more carefully as well. And you know, here in Somerville, we've done a couple of different things with our zoning code to encourage more solar and to encourage more energy efficiency, but it's all kind of incentive-based work rather than mandates. So you can't require it, but you can provide real incentives for people to do things. So you know, you can give them more height or more density or something like that in exchange for doing energy efficiency or solar or things like that. So we've done things like that and require. I think in certain districts in Somerville, which is development crazy right now, so we can do things like this. We provide incentives for, but one of the things that you have to do is build. Your roofs have to be either green roofs or solar roofs. So we have some green advocates who want all green roofs, and we have some energy advocates who want all solar roofs. So we had to split the difference there. We were happy there. But so that's what we're trying to do here. But we're trying to figure out how exactly Watertown did that, and we want to try to copy that ourselves.
Yeah, it's so. You have been able to pass something in Somerville about requiring houses to have solar, new construction on homes.
So it's using something called a zoning overlay. So it's a kind of a technical zoning solution for areas that are being kind of majorly redeveloped. I think if you were building in those districts, you could still build to the old zoning code and not be required to do anything. But if you wanted to build the big buildings that we're allowing through this overlay district, then you would have to do the green or solar roof. So it's an incentive, not a mandate.
Mm-hmm. I see. You know, we had started to do a campaign, the 350 organization, about solarizing Holliston with a Mass Plus program, and we were very disappointed to see that's not being funded anymore. Do you have any suggestions on other programs that we might be able to pursue to do a mass solarization of Holliston or any town? Yeah.
Those incentives are going away. I don't know the solar incentives, the solar municipal level incentives that well. Maybe Josh might have some insight on that.
Not a lot. Yeah, there's a lot that's changing right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would remind everybody that Senator Barrett is on the committee for the bill between the Senate and the House, the climate bill. So if you want to contact Mike Barrett, now would be a good time.
Hi. I'd like to know where I can go to find out more about those rebates for electric cars. I know sometimes some of them, this is constantly shifting as to state and federal rebates for electric cars. And how can I find out which ones are still effective and how much I could get rebated? Anyone?
I can, so the Green, the Green Energy Consumers Alliance has a program called Drive Green, and they've actually negotiated prices on electric cars and hybrid cars, but they also provide information on current rebates and when they expire and where they sit. I can put the link in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to ask for information about the Black Earth recycling. I looked it up, I can go to their website and everything, but how do we make sure in that it gets credited as one of the, to Bedford's quota? Are any of the costs involved tax deductible in any way as part of some kind of?
Yeah, so when you go to Black Earth to sign up, they will ask you what town you're from. And this deal about, for instance, in Bedford, if we get to 200, the price will drop 30%. they have some of those type of deals in other towns as well. And when you put your town in, it will, you know, indicate, and there's actually an option. Let's say you don't want to pay the price until it actually drops. In other words, if it's $99 for 6 months of service, and you want to wait until there's at least 200 people, there is a checkbox to say, I'll join when it drops. So you can kind of be on their waiting list. And they kind of, you know, just by putting your town in, they'll be able to track and tell you what the current prices and such are. And what was the other question?
So that was basically it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Paul, if you don't mind displaying the next slide, I just wanted to give people a little bit of a heads up. We have some great presentations coming up. Again, this is a community monthly presentation. In November, Bob Doud is giving a talk about forgery, which should be fascinating, based on he and his father's experience working on some very fascinating cases. Please note, if you're interested in joining for that, it's going to be held from 2 to 3 p.m. instead of 4 to 5. And in December, Brad Connor is going to be giving a presentation on Beethoven on the 250th anniversary of his birth. And then in January, we have Rebecca Green-Neal talking about the Supreme Court and how cases go up to the Supreme Court or do not. So that's a brief preview. And could you present the next slide, please? Okay, and I just wanted to encourage people, if you enjoyed today's presentation and would like to support continuation of these Lyceum talks, we'd be grateful if you'd like to contribute, support in any of these 3 ways. This slide will be displayed at every Lyceum if you want to jot it down. But we would greatly appreciate your support. It offsets some of the costs for our Zoom contract. The next one, please. Thank you. Well, Corinne, Larry, Josh, thank you very much. But we want to also recognize Paul Bradford, who's been our chief behind the scenes today for our Zoom technical issues, and Bob Bass, who will be helping upload the recording after editing to YouTube for anyone else who wants to view this Lyceum. So, Corinne, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your organizing this.
Well, and thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.